I'm Ardra Shepherd, and this is Tripping on Air, a place to talk shit about what it's like to have MS. Normally, I like to make everything about me, but MS also affects the people we love. So weighing in from the partner perspective is Alex Hajar, my friend whose wife also has MS. Join us monthly as we dish about everything from symptoms to stigma. If you have MS or you love someone who does, we want to connect with you. Alex, how are you? How was your week?
I'm doing good. I'm doing better. I threw my back out last week and I was immobile all weekend. Luckily, I was able to get back to normal. I went to a physiotherapy appointment, which seems to do a lot of good things. And then I played a rock and roll show in Toronto with my band. So I had a really good week.
You're bouncing back.
I am bouncing back cautiously, very cautiously. How about you?
Yeah, you don't want to re-injure your back. I am buried in the book I'm writing. It's like, I don't even know what day or time it is or who I am. If I owe you an email or a phone call, like that's why. It's like, it's due very soon and it's very exciting, but it's a lot.
By the way, it's November. So just, that's how long you've been in hibernation.
How long I've been in hibernation? No, it's not. It's like the end of April. By the time this episode comes out, we'll be into May. So yeah, it's
spring flowers. What are we talking about today?
We are doing something totally different today. This episode is all about reader. I mean, I guess some people read the transcript. Actually, Somebody was asking for a transcript recently. So it's for questions from our audience, and some of them actually are pretty juicy.
Oh, feedback. I know we get a lot of great comments on the socials, but I'm really excited to engage one-on-one, sort of.
You should be. I mean, I only ever get good feedback about you, Alex.
Really? Yeah, I know. You do send me things, and they are encouraging, actually.
I send them to you because you're not on all the socials. So I feel like you should know. I'm
on Facebook now. So if anybody cares, you can reach out. Yeah.
You're on Facebook, but you don't tell me? What the hell?
So I made the leap because I have the other podcast and I got rid of X or Twitter or whatever it's called now. So I had to reach out. I feel like people on Facebook may listen to podcasts a bit more. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. It's just you
clearly don't know what you're doing in terms of building an audience on Facebook. That's true. If you don't even tell me. So
I'm telling you now, this is the big reveal.
Thank you. I will find you. And also I feel like, are you following me on Facebook? We need to talk.
That's a good question. I've been buying a lot of like vinyl albums on Marketplace. That's basically what I've been using it for. So that's embarrassing, but I've said it now. So.
I mean, that's a hobby. That's fun. Okay. You're off Twitter X. I'm thinking about making that break too. It's kind of a weird place.
It's crowded. Yeah.
And Threads. Are you on Threads? Threads is kind of like the new...
I've heard I keep getting weird propaganda on my Instagram for Threads. I haven't leaped into it yet though.
Okay. I'm on Threads.
All right,
it's like it out. It's like Twitter X, but less polluted, at least for now. So
interesting. Okay. I'll search.
Okay, let's get into this episode. I want to start with a comment from Jane because it's so nice. And that's just like a good way to start the day, right?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, Jane.
Hi, Jane. Listen, Jane says, thank you for all your work and in particular the blog, Tripping on Air, which helped me out when MS started to give me some big problems after being diagnosed at 51. You're so relatable, honest, but not depressing, and the laughs. You inspired me to start my own blog, which is really awesome. Thank you, Jane. Her question is, the recent publicity around Christina Applegate and Jamie Lynn Sigler's podcast, which is called Messy, got me thinking about the differences and the common ground of having a diagnosis of MS at different ages, being in your 20s or in your 50s, as I was, and I wondered what your thoughts are around this. Great question, Jane. I was in my early 20s like Jamie, so I can't really say what it's like to be diagnosed in your 50s. I can say that at that stage in my life, for me, it felt like all the major life decisions were still ahead of me. And then MS comes along and just kind of F's everything up. So MS for me shaped a lot of my adult life. And I feel like it's not cool to say that. Like, we're not supposed to let MS define us and all of those good things, but it's definitely been a factor in a lot of the choices that I've made. I feel like the Messy podcast is cool. I relate to a lot of Jamie's perspective because she was diagnosed around the same time and at around the same age as me. So it's interesting to listen to it with Christina, who, like yourself, Jane, was diagnosed in her 50s. And it feels like Jamie's kind of like Christina's Sherpa, her MS Sherpa, if that makes sense.
It does sound that way.
Yeah.
We had the diagnosis come in sort of when Nicole was like in our 30, when we were in our 30s, sort of. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's just something we have to kind of consider. It kind of took us by surprise because it's late. And I mean, in your 50s seems really late given the information that I've read about MS diagnosis. So it can be a shock. There's a lot of resources and people are creating new resources for this sort of stuff, which is great.
I think a lot of people who do get diagnosed in their 50s have had these kind of niggling symptoms for years, and it's gone overlooked. So that's kind of an interesting thing too. I went from first symptoms to diagnosis. It took me only a couple of months, but I can imagine it's a whole nother kind of frustration of complaining about different symptoms and things and not being taken seriously until your 50s.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I think we had experienced some things that didn't make any sense until the diagnosis came in, and then retroactively you're like, the penny drops and you're like, oh, that's probably what was happening, or this is probably what was going on. But until you get the optic neuritis or whatever the trigger is for diagnosis, then you're like, oh shit, like, yeah, it all fits together, I guess. But
thank you, Jane, for the great question. You can check out Jane's blog at Jane Harrison on Substack. We'll put a link in the show notes. It's called The Hoblicious Chronicles, which is such a fun name for a blog. And I actually have checked it out and it's really good. There's only a few posts so far, but I would encourage you to check it out because, we can never have too many stories. And if you don't find the one that you relate to, sorry, clearing the frog, you can find. You just have to keep looking. Along the same lines, we have another question about celebrities with MS, which is, how do you feel about celebrities like Christina Applegate and Selma Blair? Do you want to weigh in first, Alex?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's always great when someone with such a big platform uses it for good, to relate their experiences in an intimate way is really helpful to know that people who have the same afflictions are not alone. I think Christina is really great at delivering an honest take. That's kind of my take. It's an early podcast, right? There's only a few episodes, but I like the back and forth, and it's cool that they're celebs and stuff, but I mean, they're talking about real stuff, and that's kind of what we want to hear. I
wrote a piece called What the MS Community Really Thinks About Selma Blair. I wrote it on the blog, Tripping on Air. We'll put it in the show notes. Because I think, listen, the bottom line is that we are constantly hearing about how MS is different for everyone who has it. But for a long time, there's been very little public sort of awareness about what the disease is. So when you only have a handful of people who are public about it, that really shapes and informs what the public thinks about MS. So I think the more voices we can pile on, the better. But, the other issue with celebrities who are public about their diagnosis is, I think sometimes we forget that they're also human and they're also going through this thing. And so I think we need to be careful about what we expect of them. It's like... Yeah.
So yeah, I'll say this because I did read this on a Reddit forum, so I didn't come up with this out of my brain. But there's someone who had listened to the podcast had mentioned that it wasn't mentioned that there is a level of privilege that celebrities excuse me, more coffee needed as well, that celebrities have that most people don't have. And so that should be acknowledged, I think, as well. It's fair to say that because, we've said it in the past here where MS is kind of a bougie disease, right? So
in that MS is expensive. And I think that's a great, it's a great point, Alex. And it's also really tricky because, all the privilege in the world didn't get Selma Blair diagnosed in appropriate time. And I also feel, that it's dangerous territory when we start comparing our own MS to anyone else's. I think it can trigger feelings of unfairness and jealousy, and the disease is really unfair for everyone. And it's not like, I agree. There are privileges that can make living with this disease easier, but it's not for us to maybe attack or feel jealous of people with better access to things that we all have a right to have. And I think it's sort of incumbent on all of us to advocate for better healthcare, better accessibility, better all these things overall. And, I appreciate the awareness that's being raised by the people who are willing to be public and vulnerable and to share their stories. And I think we have to be...
I don't think you could say it better than that. I think that's very well said. One question I've heard making the rounds is, do you think MS is caused by a vaccine?
No.
I know.
Right?
I know.
Okay. I kind of understand how if you have heard MS and vaccine in the same sentence lately, that can lead to conclusions. You know what? I'm also guilty of reading a headline and acting like I read the whole article, like not necessarily with MS, but a lot of times we don't read all the finer details. MS is a complex disease. There are genetic and environmental factors that can lead to MS. If you are hearing the letters MS and vaccine in the same sentence lately, it could be because it is an increasingly credible theory that MS is in part caused by Epstein-Barr virus. And if we can develop a vaccine to Epstein-Barr virus, that could have a real potential impact on preventing MS in the first place. And then also, stemming from that, there are theories that antivirals could be complementary therapies to help manage existing MS. So it's actually a really good news story if that's the way, if those are the stories you're hearing it. And if you're not, then just consider the news sources, do fact checking and ask questions, but MS is absolutely not caused by a vaccine.
Yes. Think critically, I think is like a good response to have. But
it's getting harder, right? There's so much confusing information out there.
It's stuff like social media that creates an environment where it's really easy to believe anything or disbelieve it based on headlines. But anyways, agreed. Another question here. How do you motivate yourself on difficult MS days?
Like guilt and self-loathing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kidding, kind of. But honestly, more days are difficult than not. And when I really have to get something done, I try to break it down into pieces. So even when I'm talking about finishing my book and when it feels really overwhelming, I just have to say to myself, okay, if you can just write one good sentence, one really good sentence or one good paragraph, then that can sometimes get me over the hump. Other times it's totally unhealthy. I'll tell myself okay, if you finish this chapter, you can buy that skirt you've been eyeing on Free People website.
Nice.
Sometimes it's just you have to, reward yourself.
Treat yourself.
But treat yourself. But I think in terms of little things around the house, I break that down too. So I'll say to myself, every time I get up to pee, I'm going to put one thing away, or I'm going to put the cups in the dishwasher, or just do one little thing instead of trying to tackle it all at once. But I don't know, the rest of the time, I'm just giving myself a pass and reminding myself that like nobody really cares if I'm not killing it all the time. I can't be awesome all the time.
Yeah. There has to be breaks from being incredible, right? But I think I read a book last year, maybe called "Rest is Resistance" by Trisha Hersey, and it motivated me to just chill the F out, right? If I'm having a bad day and I don't want to do anything, I remind myself that there's been a systematic effort to make me feel guilty. Like you said, guilt is part of it, right? For not being quote unquote productive. And thus I throw on a record player or a record or a playlist or light some incense and just chill out, right? And I mean, on the other hand, Nicole's a great motivator, but if it's a bad day or 2 or 5, I just let them kind of happen. And then I start making lists. Lists are a thing where there's check boxes on the side. That gets me up and moving. But yeah, I can't always be.
Lists too.
Yeah, lists are great.
But Nicole's a good motivator in what way? In that she lights a fire under you? Yeah,
I think she's had great training. Like her, she's educated. Her educational background is in like social work, and so she's worked like primarily child and youth work, I should say. And so she's worked a lot with negotiating with young people to get them to do things without yelling at them or making them feel bad. And so she finds
the same strategies she uses on kids with you.
Yes, yeah. Because I'm a man baby. That's the thing, right?
Oh, God, Alex. It's like, I'm going to time you and see how fast you can like make the bed. She does that.
No, well, that's just the thing. Like she uses like specific wording and things like that to make it seem like it's a cooperative effort and that it makes me feel like a big boy, right? Like, I don't want to be petulant either. So she does it in a non-confrontational way, which is actually a productive way of getting me to do stuff. But
this is all like a great reminder to me that it's not just people with MS who feel this like overwhelming pressure to like achieve and be productive all the time, which actually this leads to the next question we got, this is a really good one. It's how do you separate your self-worth from productivity? It's hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because of like part of that book is like Rest is Resistance. What I was mentioning is capitalism has created this, and sort of this like untethered version of capitalism has created this like idea that we all have to tie our worthiness to being productive, but we don't. You don't have to do that. It's not necessary.
That's part of the challenge, though, is that even if you believe that and you accept that, there are people around you and in your world and society that still are believing that and making judgments and putting that pressure on you. So it does take like active resistance to not buy into that. And I have to say it's extra tough because I feel it feels good on the days when I am productive and accomplishing stuff. And I think maybe part of coming to terms better with the days when I feel like I suck is not giving myself as much props for the days when I'm killing it, if that makes sense. Like not assigning a value to that, right? I do adaptive horseback riding, which I love, but it is regularly a struggle to kind of motivate myself to get out the door. My classes start at 8:30 at night, which is a time when I really, really need to rally. And so in the winter term, I missed a fair number of classes. I wasn't feeling well, whatever. It's a spring term now, and I've just gone to 3 consecutive classes in a row. And I know, but I'm like, oh, I'm killing it. I'm amazing. But then I think I need to be more neutral about it, because if I have to cancel next week, I don't want to feel like shit about it.
Yeah. I try to like put out of my mind the idea that like or I've done this more lately than ever because I used to be really attached to the idea of like, what do people think? Do people think I'm being productive, or lazy? Because people will tell you like, stop being lazy. And you're like, what the fuck? But what I mean is like, there are all
Who's telling you that?
I don't know, just.
I know it's not Nicole because she uses
No, but I'm
toddlers.
Yeah. Like I just think like when you're growing up or when I was growing up, there's a lot of maybe talk here and there about like laziness and not being lazy. So the ultimate goal is to be this version of productivity. But the thing is like there's so many variables, and part of those variables are these people's opinions, and like I can't control how other people feel, so why should I care about it? And that's another maybe method I use to be like, why should I give a shit what they think? I'm just going to sit on my phone all day. This is that day. So I
think it's about knowing yourself, right? And just feeling, so it's less like screw you and more just like, I know who I am. I know what I can do and what I'm doing, and I know my worth.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I love it. Okay, here's one for you, Alex. How do you not let your wife's chronic illness affect your mental health?
It does. It does every day. I think about it. I think about the past and what's happening now and what's gonna go on, later on. But I mean, after a few years of living with it, it just kind of gets absorbed into the daily rigmarole of life. Acceptance, adaptation. Those kind of things take priority when managing my mental health regarding how I deal with MS. How about you?
Yeah, same. It totally affects my mental health. It's a constant negotiation. Some days it's better than others. I think you get on with it. And everything affects our mental health, good and bad. So I don't think it would be weird if it didn't. Right?
Yeah. Like I don't want to say like, I hate that it plays a part in my brain. It just does. It just does. So
yeah.
Like if MS wasn't a part of my daily life, then I wouldn't go to a bar and think like, wow, fuck, this is not wheelchair accessible. You know what I mean? And that's not a problem that's now something I think about. It just is. So it affects my mental health, but I go to therapy and I think that is super helpful in dealing with whatever is going on in my brain. So that's something. If you can, take advantage of that. That's good. I've got a question here from Cheryl. So Cheryl says, I had a doctor tell me MS doesn't cause pain. Really? I've been getting bone and joint pain. I'm 60 years old and have had PPMS, so primary progressive MS, for 13 years. I always ask, is it arthritis or MS?
Thank you for your question, Cheryl. This is such a good one. I was told like way years and years ago that by a doctor also that MS doesn't cause pain, but we know now that that's like completely not true. It's actually in one of our top myths about MS episodes that we did in season 1. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes too. That said, I do feel like it's common to kind of question every little thing and say, is this MS and is it not? And not everything is MS. So it's possible that it is arthritis in this case. It's also, it could be like nerve pain is more directly caused by MS, but I would say for my own situation, the arthritis in my knees is a secondary MS symptom because it's my fancy MS walk that led to the pain in my knees in the first place. If that makes sense, like the point is wherever the pain came from, it shouldn't be dismissed, and you should have a doctor who takes you seriously and works to help you find a solution to relieve that pain. But I assure you, MS can 100 million% cause pain.
Mm-hmm. I can back that up. Not from obviously first experience, but secondary experience. So
because you hear about it.
I hear about it. I have to help.
We're not making it
assuage. I never know how to pronounce that word.
I think it's assuage.
Assuage. Yeah, but yeah, it does.
Fancy word, Alex.
I read a lot. Okay, what do you want? I want to throw these words into real life.
Shout out to all the readers out there. This is a sidebar. My favorite story of my husband's, who got made fun of as a kid for pronouncing chaos chouse.
Wow.
When he was like reading aloud in class. But it's like, it's totally fair. If that's the only way you've seen a word is in writing, when you're young, before you hear it. Not enough people say assuage, Alex.
I know. I think it should be said more. But I get that feeling with like, it's funny when you read a book and then you listen to the audiobook, or like a whole generation reads Harry Potter, and then like some people are like stunned by the way when they see the movie, like what the name of the character is. It's a funny coincidence.
Yeah, because
thing that
like
happens.
If you are not British and you read Harry Potter, like before the movies came out, you didn't know how to say Hermione. I didn't.
Yeah. Hermione, I think.
Hermione.
Hermione. Yeah.
It's like, it makes so much. Yeah.
So.
Okay, this is a good question. Who would you love to have on the pod?
Yeah, I've thought about this, and I think I've brought up a couple people before, but I think Aaron Solo. Oh my God, I said it in my head perfectly fine. Aaron Solowaniuk. Is there?
I'm gonna take a crack at it. Solowaniuk.
Aaron Solowaniuk.
Are you listening?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've totally butchered your name, Aaron. If you are listening, he's the drummer for Billy Talent. He's in the band. I think he drums sporadically now. He was diagnosed with MS, and he supports the band on tour. He still goes out with them and stuff like that. But yeah, I'd like to hear from him, his experience, because he was a touring musician, which is something that I've aspired to be for a long, long time. But then getting diagnosed with MS is obviously, it's a big interruption in your life, and just kind of get his view on where he thought he would end up versus where he is now, and if he has any advice for young people who are aspiring touring musicians who might also have MS, and tell them, maybe life isn't, being a musician isn't the end, or whatever he has to say. Sorry.
No, I think Aaron would be an amazing guest. I know he's read the blog, so maybe he listens to the pod. I don't know. Maybe he wants to do the show. Maybe we could get Byron Isaacs from the Lumineers too, like MS Rockstar edition. Okay.
Yeah, get them in. I think their opinions are valuable, to a lot of young people who are playing music and stuff. So, or older people play music. I don't know. Anyways, I guess can I ask you this? Can I ask you the same question? Yeah. Who would you want?
I feel like, those are two really great examples. I feel also like my dream guests are kind of nerdy answers. Go on. Professor G. We did almost have him on the show, and like we had scheduling issues. I'd love to have him on the show. I'd love to have Dr. O back. Her episode on smoldering MS was so good. This is also super nerdy, but Michael Ignatieff, I think I would love to talk to him about a book he wrote called On Consolation, which doesn't have anything to do with MS.
Where do you see the show? Where do you see the future of the show heading?
What happens? I don't know. I hadn't really thought about it. Like, what happens after a pod? Is it TV? Like, because okay, let me.
You're already
pitch
on
this.
TV.
I know. let me pitch this though. The Real Housewives of MS.
Okay, and then do we have like a Real Husbands like pool?
No,
house,
sorry, Alex.
cabin? No, I'm
I don't
workshopping this idea. I'm with you.
I don't know. Andy Cohen, call us. I think I'd watch the shit out of that show.
Yeah. Why not? Right. I think. Yeah.
I don't know where do you see this pod going?
I really like what we're doing. If I'm based on my experience with podcasts, which is literally just my own show, just keep going. Just keep going. I think we have lots of content to cover. But I like the idea that we're providing resources, and there are subject matter experts on the show. With the occasional drinking binge, laughing
giveaway.
and complaining. Yeah, giveaway. Like, these are very comfortable places to be, I think. So I'm happy with what we're doing, but more of the same would be cool.
I think you're right, Alex. Yeah, I don't know.
Thanks.
I'd watch The Real Housewives of MS. I don't know if I want to be on it. Could maybe
It'd be an
life.
interesting thing to see. Yeah.
It would be, right? I think, it'd be interesting. Okay. What was an unexpected surprise you discovered about hosting a podcast? I mean, you already had your own podcast when you came on this show, but any surprises?
Yeah. It was the absolute sheer amount of work that it takes to do a podcast. I've been told by guests and maybe a couple other people that I have a lot of emails and a lot of templates and stuff like that. And they're like, you do a lot of work. And it's just that's just, I guess, how my brain works. But I mean, organizing the guests, editing, production, advertising, with Tripping on Air, AMI, thankfully, does a lot of the heavy lifting. And Ardra, you steer a tight ship with the content and working with a friend is always nice. But if anybody's going to start their own podcast, it is a shit ton of work. And that was surprising because you think it's just like hop on a mic and then press record and then that's it, right? Upload it to wherever. But that's not the case.
I mean, probably it is for some people, but I don't know if it's like a surprise, kind of. I don't know. Anytime I get an email or a message or see a comment where it's like moved someone to tears or really resonated, that feels like just so rewarding. Yeah, there has been some feedback that you've sent me because I'm not diligent about social media, where I've been surprised that someone was like talking about me talking, right? I'm like, oh, I said something that made somebody feel a certain way, especially positive and stuff. That's what makes me very grateful for people listening and engaging. But surprising to see that. Yeah, maybe. So. Okay, we have a number of relationship cues, which are kind of fun. First one is, how did you and Nicole meet?
Yeah, Nicole used to work at a tattoo shop on Yonge Street in Toronto. She was a body piercer, and a high school friend of mine also worked there. And I went to visit my high school friend, and she introduced us. And then that same night, so I went with a different high school friend. He got tattooed, and I ended up speaking to Nicole for a couple hours. And then they invited us to this party, and I basically talked at Nicole for about 3 hours. I had just come back from backpacking, so I couldn't shut up about it. I backpacked across Europe for like a month or so. And then she gave me her number. And I kind of just realized that anyone willing to listen to me for that long, I should probably hold on to. So that's our basic how we met story. But how about you and Carrie? How did you meet?
We met working in the same office. So, I mean, it's kind of boring, kind of. Yeah, I don't know. Everyone now, I think, meets online. So
on apps and stuff.
On the apps, I'm really glad I didn't ever have to do that.
I'm more and more, the more I learn about it, the more glad I am that I didn't have to deal with apps. Everybody seems like fed up with them, or a lot of people that I talk to anyways that are dealing with them.
How has MS affected your relationship with your partner?
Yeah, I don't think I can actually say that it has off the top of my head. Like, there are things we do differently, but like my feelings for Nicole are exactly the same as they were pre-diagnosis. We might have better communication. Not that we don't argue or bicker, but we understand each other a lot more because, we have to announce our boundaries more often than maybe people who don't live with a chronic illness have to announce their boundaries as much. But yeah, I don't think the relationship has suffered because of MS. How about you guys?
No, yeah, I think it's something that we have to factor into a lot of things. Yeah, I don't think it's suffered. I think we have a good marriage. I think it has impacted it in a way because my husband is such a natural helper and I'm such a natural, do it myself kind of person that it's put me in a position of needing to accept help in a way that I don't always want to. And it's just been hard for me to accept that there are people who actually do want to help.
Yeah, it feels almost like a similar dynamic. Like if Nicole asks for help, it's because she's been trying to do something for like probably 5 to 10 solid minutes. And then she'll be like, I need help. And then I'll just come over without thinking about it and help to do the thing. So there's no like questioning it. There's no nothing like that. So it sounds like a similar dynamic anyways, but I can see that being a challenge, is learning to ask for help for sure. I guess relationship wise, this next question falls into that landscape. Does MS make it hard or impossible to have sex?
This is such a loaded topic. I think we need to do a whole episode on sex. I wrote about it again on the blog. We can post it in the show notes. No, people with MS can have sex. MS can complicate things, but there are lots of things that you can and should do to mitigate those complications. I remember when I was first diagnosed, and you get all these pamphlets, and one of the pamphlets listed all the possible symptoms, and one of them said sexual dysfunction without at all qualifying what that meant. I was 23, and I was just like, ugh. Knowledge is power, you know? And so that's maybe a future episode where we can get into it in a little bit more detail, but we'll throw some resources up in the show notes because there are lots of things that you can do. And yes, people with MS can have sex and fulfilling sex lives also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's very well said. So I'm just going to crack on to the next question. This one kind of floats up. I see this all over the place, but I guess for a person with MS, do you have a special diet that you follow?
Yeah, popcorn with Smarties and a cocktail. You know what? It changes all the time, really. I think I've tried all of the MS specific diets with varying degrees of success. None have ever prevented me from having a relapse, but it's true that from time to time, dietary changes have either improved MS symptoms or made them worse. And I'm talking about like bladder bowel function, fatigue, sleep, these kinds of things. So it's really something that I consider and renegotiate all the time. Food is a big part of being social and of enjoying life. And so we all have to kind of make these choices and decisions because MS takes a lot, you know, and I don't want it to take creme brulee too. Because I feel like, you know, sometimes when I am on some strict diet, like it does impact the whole house.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the food choices I make impact my husband too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like we don't cook individually or anything like that. So when we make meals, there's only 2 of us. So it doesn't make sense to do that. But in our house, I mean, we've been vegetarian for like 6 or 7 years. We didn't find, you know, we've eaten like meat heavy diets in the past, and then we've done diets here or there. You know, we've been involved in that diet culture stuff before, and it doesn't seem to help. It doesn't really help with weight loss. But it doesn't seem to help with any symptoms of MS. Vegetarians, like, it's just like, I guess it's a cleaner way to eat. I mean, once in a while we'll fit in some meat these days, but like I said, we've been fairly strict for 6 or 7 years, and it seems like it's been fine. We've been happy to eat everything we consume. So, but no special diets.
Yeah, I think makes sense.
Yeah. I think, so here's a question, because I feel like people get asked this, people with chronic illness get asked this probably a lot more than they want to get asked this, but what's the best answer when someone asks, what's wrong with you, or what happened to you?
It sounds, even when you say it sounds like people actually ask you that. It happens all the time. And honestly, I've answered it in every way possible a million times. And now I usually say it's a long story. And if that doesn't work, I say it's personal. Like I'd rather not say. So, and usually that works. Last week I was in an Uber and a driver asked me how much my rollator cost. And I was like, and then he was just like, yeah, but how much? Like, I just like avoided it and skirted it. Like, I don't know.
Maybe it's a
weird.
step up from what happened, but it's still an awkward question.
It was super awkward. Yeah, I did, because it's a kind of fancy rollator, and I just felt weird about it. Okay, Alex, this one's for you. How do you handle it when someone calls you a good man or infers that you're some kind of martyr for being with someone who has MS? Because I know this happens to my husband too.
Yeah, it definitely happens. I mean, I usually roll my eyes and try not to acknowledge it or simply say like, I'm not. I think it's like usually said out of a knee-jerk reaction, some sort of conditioning, and they don't really know that they're saying something silly. One thing I thought was funny once, this isn't particularly MS related, but I was at a funeral once. Maybe I've told this story before, but I was at a funeral for my father-in-law. So when Nicole's dad passed away, and one of Nicole's aunts came up to me and she said, "You're the man of the house now." And then she gave me a giant slice of cheese as a gift for being the man of the house.
Honestly, I'm coming back in my next life as the man of the house, just because I want all the cheese. That's amazing.
I was so taken aback that I got a piece of cheese at a funeral for that reason. I was like, that's so wild. But I mean,
very, very odd.
Yeah. If someone called me a martyr and gave me a piece of cheese, I'd be more willing to accept that label, but no.
I think so. That's the secret. Like, if you're going to say something ignorant, serve it with food.
Give me cheese or something.
Literally easier to swallow.
Exactly.
Honestly, I wonder if, listeners, if you are a woman and you are married to someone who has MS, do people say the same thing to you? Because,
or vice, it could work vice versa, right?
No, but I mean, so my brother-in-law has MS, and I don't think anyone has ever told my sister she's a saint for sticking with him.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, interesting.
I think it is gendered, but I don't know. I could be wrong. I would love to hear from listeners, from our audience, to see if anyone else experiences this. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alex, we're like getting down to the wire of these questions. We got to blow through them because we're running out of time.
Okay, fair enough. Should I ask this one here? We talk about it all the time, but do you ever get burned out about talking about MS?
MS is exhausting, but maybe more than talking about MS, I do get kind of burned out by social media and feeling the pressure to like kind of keep up there. But yeah, I don't know. I think one of the drags of MS is that when you go on vacation, it's coming with you, and like most of the things in life that we maybe feel burned out by, we can escape from, at least temporarily if we're on vacation. But MS actually, I feel like kind of gets worse when you're on vacation, out of your routine and sleep and diet and all these things. So,
okay. Well, we have one last question, and it's specifically for Ardra. You always have great advice about the latest products and tools that can help. Do you have any recent discoveries?
I do. I think the weather is getting warmer, and everyone, I think, is already starting to complain about the heat because heat can impact MS. But I am still perpetually chronically cold, especially my feet. But I found this hot water bottle for your feet on Amazon. It's like faux fur covered, and you slip your feet into it. I'll put it in the show notes. It's the bomb. And actually, I think it's going to save me money because it wasn't expensive, but it's like my $1 a day habit is those like Hot Pocket charcoal adhesive little hotties, even in the summer. But this is like, I think this could maybe replace it. It's pretty awesome. I love it.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm interested to see it because I use the thing for my back, but it's just like a regular flat one. But one for your feet would be cool. That sounds neat.
Trippers, thank you for your questions. Keep them coming, and maybe we should add a question to the end of every episode. That could be fun. If you are enjoying the pod, please like, follow, subscribe, comment, do all the things. We want to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to Tripping on Air. Don't forget to visit us at trippingonair.com.